Welcome to EPCA, Electric People's Car of America. Well, we've got the Dodge Dakota up and running. It's taken a little while to get everything put together, but that's the way these projects go sometimes. We've got the Charger running right now, and I wanted to show you the engine compartment and how it turned out. So in here you have the DC to DC converter. All the 12 volt stuff is over here on this side. The fuse block, the factory fuse block from the manufacturer, and the one that we installed from Blue Sea. Then we have a contactor with a relay in the weatherproof junction box. Then we have our DC to DC converter, which basically works like the alternator on an internal combustion engine. Takes the pack voltage and transforms it down to, in this case we're stepping it down to 14 volts and charging that battery. Then over here we have our Soliton Junior controller, which is water cooled, and basically all that does is it just tells the motor how fast to turn, and it communicates to the throttle, which is right there. Back behind the controller we have the forced air induction system, which basically blows air down on the commutator of the motor, and it helps keep the armature and the motor cool by forcing air on it. And it also keeps out contamination and different kinds of, in this case, when this truck gets delivered to Astoria, which is right at the mouth of the Columbia River on the coast, there's a lot of salt in the atmosphere, so we wanted to try to keep out as much contaminants as possible. Back behind it, we've installed a switch so we can disconnect the battery power and work on the components, or if you're going to store the vehicle, to eliminate any kind of parasitic drain that could cause the batteries to go dead. Over here we have a terminal block, which is for the battery power, and we have clear covers on both of those so that nobody can stick their fingers on them. Here we have our little AVC2, which is for the J1772 power charging system. Right here we have our 500 amp fuse and our shunt, which gives us the ability to read the amperage inside on the instrumentation. Down below here we have a reservoir for the coolant, and that's also the pump for the coolant to cool the controller. It's being cooled with a glycol, which is basically antifreeze. That runs through. What we did is we utilized the transmission, or the actually it's not transmission, it's the air conditioning system. This is a solid radiator up here in the whole front of the vehicle, so we're pushing all the coolant for the controller through there to give maximum cooling capacity. And over here we have our charger, Manzanita Micro PFC 30, which is right now charging the batteries, and it's a nice little unit. Down here we have a junction box where we've installed the AC power outlet for the charger, so that if it ever went bad we could just unplug it, unbolt it with 4 screws, and unplug it and pull it right out of there. Back here we have our AC power terminals, where all the AC power comes in. And then underneath here we have an air compressor for the power brake system, which we put our reservoir for that underneath so that it would be out of the way. And then over here underneath the DC to DC converter we have our compressor for our power steering. Then here we have another reservoir, which is for the REM, which is a liquid heating system, a fluid heater, I guess it was technically called a fluid heater. Basically, it's like an Insta-Hot that you have in your kitchen, and you fill this up with fluid, and then the battery pack, power from the battery pack keeps it hot, and it pipes it through your heater core, and then you can have heat inside using your factory switches, your vents, and so forth. It's a little bit better than installing electric heat. So that's about it in the engine compartment. We tried to keep it as clean as we could, because I know people don't like to see a bunch of wires going everywhere, and I think we did a pretty decent job on it. I suppose everybody could find something wrong with it if they looked hard enough. Inside the truck, we have our gauges that we put in the dash, which right now we're at 177.8 volts. And that's really the only gauge that we put in it so far. We try to utilize all the factory stuff and try to keep it as clean as possible. And of course we still got the bed off of it because we're doing testing and we want to be able to get to the batteries. So we got our junction box and our J1772 set up temporarily. All the batteries are looking good. We have about 6 cells out of the total 110 that are giving us some high voltage. They're charging higher than the other cells, so that's going to be a little bit of an issue. We're going to try a couple things and see if we can get them all to balance out good and get them up to maximum capacity without overcharging any of them. So I just wanted to show you what it looks like now, and let you know that it runs good. We'll take you on a little drive later. Okay, thanks for watching.